What I would like to do is to introduce Rosa Melton here, who's my co-presenter today. So, Rosa, would you care to tell us a little bit about who you are?
Sure thing. First of all, welcome everybody and thank you for joining us. My name is Rosa Melton. I work at DC Fabricators, a military contractor. I've been in all kinds of diverse industries over the years with one common thread, quite simply, make things better, improvement and engage personnel. Most recently, as I said, in manufacturing has opened my eyes to a lot of things that I never encountered before, but it's absolutely paying off, and I hope I can share some of that with you today.
Great, Rosa. Thank you for being here. Folks, my name is Manny, and I've been knocking around the field of continuous improvement for a few years now. And really, I got to say that continuous improvement, lean in particular, has taken me around the world, and the whole Six Sigma piece added on to my lean focus really, I think, helps to be successful. So here's some contact information for us. Feel free to reach out. We'd love to connect. We'd love to share. And we're really starting to get more involved in creating and recording some of these small videos that we can then share with other people to help spread the wealth. Rosa, you want to take it over here?
Sure thing. Why this topic? Why is this important? Of course, lean thinking can and should be applied to processes, and those of you who are involved with lean manufacturing understand this. However, it's challenging to see opportunities not only in your work environment, but in life in general, your home environment, out in the world. It gets to the point sometimes where I'll go out and I'm standing online and I'm thinking to myself, this would be so much better if, you know, the lines could go this way and people wouldn't be obstructed. So lean thinking, the way we traditionally think of it as, you know, process improvement at work, really applies to every bit of us. And lean thinking is something that's inside, that we live, not something we learn necessarily, although you can. We will address the importance of the continuous improvement philosophy and the lean thinking philosophy, again, not just in your professional world, but your personal world, both professional and at home. I'm a firm believer that when you're doing something great, the people right around you start to kind of absorb that. And in turn, the people around them start to absorb it. And that's kind of how you build a continuous improvement army. So applying lean at work, home, and especially in your world.
Yeah, it's funny, Rosa, because I have to tell you that when you talk about lean out in the world, one of the things that drives me crazy is when I'm standing at the deli counter of the supermarket. Right. Boy, if anybody out there has a deli counter, access to one, and we can work on improving the flow, please let me know. I would be happy to do it just for the experience. Because it just drives you crazy to see all that waste, right, that's going on, and the waiting, and just makes me cringe. Anyway, so what we're hoping to do for you folks today is to really get you to start to see they're not really hidden processes, they're obvious, you work with them every day. We just don't think of them as candidates for continuous improvement. That's really what we're trying to do. Outside of a manufacturing place, everything else is transactional. So, can we apply these skills out there, and what does that look like? We're going to give you some very practical ideas that you can take with you and use today, this afternoon, no problem. And the final piece is, it really is important to engage other people in the improvements, in the planning as well as the implementation, okay? Because the best tools in the world that nobody buys into aren't going to yield very good results. But if everybody can agree on an okay solution, then by golly, we'll do very well together as a group. So we're going to talk next a little bit about how lean thinking impacts us at home, at work, and in life. So
before we go any further, I know some of you may have joined us at our previous lean where you least expect it, part 1. But just to recap, it's really intended to develop personal lean thinking and habits. And as the title said, it's going to affect you at home, it's going to affect you at work, it's going to affect you in life. The original video is on YouTube. The link is provided here, and I believe Manny said he's going to be sending that out as well in the chat. And really take a look at it, because there's some novel ideas of things where you just don't expect it. Some of the pictures here just apply to smart things that you can do at home to make your life easier. And at the end of the day, wherever you are, that's what you really want, you know, is to work smarter, not harder, make things easier.
All right, folks, this wouldn't be a lean presentation if we didn't at least bring in the 8 wastes, right? I mean, after all, it's really at the heart of what we do. And we've talked about that in the previous webinar, about how the wastes are linked to root cause, are linked to countermeasures to continued improvement. What's interesting, though, is that we've all seen versions of this. Maybe you've seen the downtime version, and it really tends to focus on really more manufacturing or business type things, right? I mean, after all, how often do you think to yourself, well, gosh, you know, when I make dinner, I feel like I'm guilty of over-processing. Not too many people say that, at least not that I'm aware of, but really these same opportunities exist everywhere. Like I said, we're looking really forward to talking about some of these specific examples and what you can do about them.
Some ideas again, and to highlight how lean can affect different parts of your life, of your world. Personal lean ideas at home, using OneNote, emailing yourself, texting yourself. I mean, those are great reminders. I know a lot of us come from, you know, the Post-it note generation, but frankly, I've run out of room. So it's easier to text myself. Point of view storage, think about this. When you're home and you're cooking, do you keep your utensils in the living room? No. Okay, they're where you need them. Cabinets and closets, how much easier would it be to get dressed in the morning if everything were in place and you could just grab without thinking so much about it? There's countless opportunities that we may be accustomed to using in a manufacturing environment that can absolutely be applied to small, simple areas. And let's face it, folks, if you're practicing lean at home and you've got yourself organized, it's only going to make work that much easier because you won't be stressed when you get there. So, Manny, would you like to talk to us about some of the work opportunities?
Sure, I think that would be pretty interesting. So when we talk about computer opportunities, you know, it's funny. I feel like everybody could learn more about computers, including and especially myself. As it turns out, people are funny. We learn just enough to be successful at our jobs, not necessarily efficient. You know, for instance, I mean, for a long time when I was trying to wrap text in Excel, I would go through this whole big, you know, you right click and then format and you know, multiple clicks, which, as we talked about in the previous webinar, each click takes probably about 2 seconds or so. So all that time adds up as well. However, finally, someone showed me the button on the toolbar that's on the home menu that will format and wrap text with 1 click. So when I think about all those times that I drilled through those menus to do the same thing I can do with 1 click, it just drives me nuts. So everybody knows what they need to know to be able to do their job, and really maybe not an awful lot more. Here are a couple of ideas that are probably there available for you. We did say that when you're drilling down into a network for folders, it takes about 2 seconds per click. I've done some informal studies, and looks like typically you're talking about 5, 6, 7 levels down, could be further. So you think to yourself, you're adding, you know, could be 10 to 20 seconds every time you're trying to open up a folder or a file. Doesn't sound like much, but multiply that by the number of times a day you do that, times the number of days that you're working, and it becomes a pretty eye-popping number after a while. So, you know, let's look at folder shortcuts. Utilize the quick access bar. It's real easy. Just try right-clicking and pinning something to the quick access bar, and you can get right to it. Likewise, we talk about keyboard shortcuts. We talk about email etiquette, which is probably a whole nother episode in itself. And then I want to talk about these last 3. I'm actually going to demonstrate them for you in a little bit. But these are some uses for that Windows key that you've probably even forgotten about that's on your keyboard because you never use it. So we will talk about some of these items. And Rosa is now going to talk about lean ideas at work.
Absolutely. At work, and not only for yourself and what you specifically do by yourself, but in your interactions with other people. Things like fillable PDFs. I don't know about you all, but it annoys the heck out of me when I have to fill a form and it's in Word and the lines get all messed up, right? So that just eliminates that kind of editing. Electronic signatures. I have been on an 8-year mission to eliminate paper where I am, and it's been a struggle. The Navy loves its paper, but electronic signatures make sense. They're fast, they're secure, and you can do everything without having to print a paper copy and sign off on it. Quad charts we're going to get into in a little more detail. Single point lessons, training. When, for example, in a machine shop, when there are multiple machines and the operators may use them all, but not on a regular basis, it just makes sense to have something that they can refer to right then, refresh their memories, move forward. I live by my Outlook. I've gotten to that age, boys and girls, where if it's not written down, it doesn't exist. And my Outlook is my Bible. If it's not on my calendar, it doesn't happen. Plan for tomorrow. You know, don't wait to come in the morning and go, okay, what am I going to do today? You know what you got to do. You know when you have to do it. Plan for it. Just make your life easier. Right now, file naming conventions is near and dear to my heart. We are currently working on restructuring our directory at work. And if your directories are anything like ours, naming conventions is a huge issue, because what somebody, you know, files away by date and then name, somebody else files by name and then date, somebody else just files it as important stuff. So these kinds of things are important when you're accessing information from different places on your server. So again, just a few examples. And if you really look at these 3 columns, think about how you can really incorporate one into another. Okay, you can really do the switch, and they're going to apply just about everywhere. So.
Of course, and you know, we don't really have to mention, Rosa, the fact that these days, for a lot of people, still the barriers or the boundaries between home and work are more blurred than ever.
Yes.
So
I do miss my pajamas and my fluffy slippers. Thank you.
Really, well, I can tell you from firsthand experience, there are certain people out there still not willing to give that up yet. So.
Okay. Well, we're going to roll forward here, and if it goes too quickly, ask your questions, because we've just got a lot of different opportunities to utilize Lean. Manny is the Amazon king, so he will defer to you on this one, Manny.
So it's sort of interesting because I have talked to other people about what their strategy for buying on Amazon is. And a surprising number of people just say, yeah, I just like kind of look at the pictures and I read the words and, you know, I like it, I like it. I like to see what other people have to say about it. And so, you know, this is actually one of my lessons on histograms too, because after all, if you hold your breath, turn your head sideways, and then hold your breath until you start to see sparkles, you'll see the histogram here. And as you can see, this one's very heavily skewed, which is good, right? I mean, in this case, by the way, this is a very good book, I will say that. But as you can see, 90% of people think it's worth 4 or 5 stars. Okay, that's pretty good. And the overwhelming majority thought it was 5 stars. So I happen to be one of these people. I agree, this book is wonderful. Of course, you have to be smart enough to be able to read the reviews and see if they're real. Likewise, I always check some of the 1-star reviews as well, just to see if people are complaining because you know, they bought this product and it didn't improve their social life or keep the sink clean, which some people do. So, you know, another thing too, and I don't want to sound like a shill for Amazon, but I will say that Rosa is right. I have saved an awful lot of gasoline by letting Amazon deliver, especially the heavy things like cat food, cat litter, or things that I use all the time, toothpaste. I got to tell you, it's pretty wonderful stuff. And oh wait, there's a discount involved too. So if you think about it a certain way, they're actually paying you to buy from them. Mm-hmm. So, all right. So Rosa, what can you tell us about culture?
Well, it's super easy. I should backtrack for a moment. only just this year, another responsibility was added to my list, and I'm now the environmental health and safety coordinator in my company. And I've discovered, while it's really easy to say, create a fear-free culture. You know, if you don't think it's safe, say so, and so on and so forth. You need to implement rules that make that count. Operations person models the culture for production. If they don't tolerate mistakes, the program will fail. It's not about accepting mistakes and letting them go, but it's about understanding that mistakes are going to happen and work with the people who are doing the job, ergo making the mistakes, to fix it, to make it better. What can we do to make this work? If we say things like, in my case now, safety is, the most important thing, or if you see something, say something, but you follow it up with, saying, oh, don't worry about it, just do it, or that's not important, or yeah, we'll address that another time, then of course, what are people actually going to think? That you're all talk and no meat, if you will. So it's super important. And as I said before, what you do yourself spreads to the people you immediately interact with. They in turn spread the wealth, right? And that's really how building culture works. It's one person, one at a time, but it grows. And when it does, and you've got people who see that it's a reality, that we're serious about this, we're going to make this work, we're going to work together to make it work, it makes a world of difference.
Yeah, absolutely. One definition of culture is the way people agree to treat each other. Do they meet their commitments? Do they show up for meetings on time? Do they answer emails within a timely fashion and whatnot? So we could spend a lot of time talking about those factors or those topics, as well as ways to encourage, to nurture, and really grow the kind of culture that you'd like to have. As a matter of fact, one of the things that you'll be hearing about a little bit later is that LED is introducing a new series, a webinar series, and it's called the Occasional Series. And in essence, it's an opportunity for LED to engage with the membership and for members to engage with each other to explore some of these topics of mutual interest. This webinar series is great in some cases for the big ideas, but sometimes we need it's paint by numbers, so to speak, for addressing culture or some of these other issues. And so the hope for the Occasional Series is that it's going to end up becoming very practical and very results oriented, again, full of things that you could do today, ideally by yourself, because that's minimum effort. So here, though, is something that is most definitely a group activity. And it's this idea of Gemba boards. Of course, I'm sure you've heard that Gemba is a Japanese term, and it means the real place or the workplace or the place where work gets done. And what we're really talking about here is a visual communication board so that people in the area know what they need to know. Managers, especially if they're just walking through an area, can see the status at a glance without having to stop and ask someone how the area is doing, and then spending 10 minutes chatting. So it really is about being efficient, about getting the information that you need. And this is one of those things, it's a great tool. And I'm going to ask you folks, have you ever seen an organization that filled out Gemba boards regularly, and then something happened, the prime pusher got distracted, and then the program kind of fell apart? It's like, oh, you remember when we used to do Gemba walks and we used to talk to the boards? I've seen this situation occur more than once. And that's, again, it reinforces the idea of people and culture, and everybody's got to agree and everybody's got to get benefit out of it and see that benefit, or else it won't work.
Something that I use regularly and strongly recommend are quad charts. Quad charts are nothing more than a really easy method to communicate the status of a workload, of a project, of anything that's in process with other stakeholders, either people who are involved in the project with you or your boss or whoever it may be. And all it is a piece of paper with 4 sections. Accomplishments being, I do mine on a weekly basis. Accomplishments, what did I do last week? What did I complete? What got finished? What do I still have to do next week, or in the next week or two? What obstacles did I encounter? Okay, what is preventing me from completing all of the tasks that I've set for myself? And what are the countermeasures that I'm taking towards that? Do I need to involve other people? Do I need some kind of an approval? What's holding it back? It's a snapshot of where you're at. Again, started using it last year when I was working from home. And I was submitting this to my boss every Friday, basically saying, okay, this is the week in review. This is what I've done. And it absolutely gave us something to talk about, where he would say, you know what, hold back on this. Let's focus on this because this is what we need first, and so on. It's just a super, super easy way to communicate. In addition, I find it an incredibly helpful sort of weekly to-do list, because there's stuff that's big and there's stuff that's small. And you tend to forget about the small stuff. Well, it's only going to take me a little while. I can do it later. This keeps you in check. It keeps things from falling between the cracks, and it reminds you of follow-ups and so on. Super, super effective tool. We have, for some reason, I'm not changing. Can you help me out here, Manny?
I can, sure.
There we go. Thank you. This is an example of an actual quad chart. And again, use it to communicate whatever it may be that you're working on, whether it's your work in general or whether it's the moving forward of a process. And you can see it's super simple, super easy to use. I made mine into a fillable PDF, so I just type and it's done. So a couple of lean things there for you.
So what's interesting is, again, people know what they know on the computer, and that seems to be about it. I've talked to a lot of folks and they say, oh, yeah, pivot tables, I'd love to learn about them. I keep hearing good things. Let me tell you, folks, pivot tables. If you're not using them, you really don't know what you're missing out on. So, for instance, though, I'm sure all of us have seen information that is like this here, where perhaps we're tracking some sort of product sales by, in this case, by type and by country. So I'm sure you've all seen stuff like this. And here's where a lot of people with their spreadsheets, they'll start merging fields or cells. They'll start doing subtotals and doing lots of different things to break up the database format of the data already, because they want to be able to interpret it. But really what you want to do is you want to keep it in this database format here, where every row is a record, every column is a field. And then what you want to be able to do is to use pivot tables to quickly summarize or slice and dice data, which is the way I like to think of it. So for instance, with just a couple of keystrokes, you can go from this list to this summary table, which then allows you to then move into something like this chart. So what would you rather look at, folks? Would you rather talk to this, or would you rather talk to this chart? I know I'm more of a visual person. Charts, please, and more of them, as long as they explain the situation. So that's the idea here. I mean, when I was building this slide, I promise you folks, this took me about 5 minutes to do. And a lot of that time was clicking through to find the file that I needed and then opening that back up. So here, just a little bit more about pivot tables. So as you saw before, we had, in this case, we had sales by type. Okay, and now over here, we're looking at sales by country. But what if you wanted to know, well, how are we doing in each country? You can then do something like this, what they call a multivariate chart, where we're now looking at sales by category and by country in the same chart. I know for some of you, this may look like a mishmash of lines, some dotted, some not, but I assure you it's not all that difficult to read. Once you get used to it, once somebody explains it to you once, you'll understand, and you can see that there are differences in consumption by country. Something that would be difficult if we just had those other two graphs to figure out. In this case, we can see very easily that some countries prefer fruit more than vegetables. France oddly seems to like both at about the same level. So I'm not sure what that says, except that there's something interesting to explore there. So Another thing that I wanted to talk about, staying in the computer idea right now, is this idea of the Windows key. Right, I'm sure you guys are all familiar with it. It's usually down lower left of your keyboard, and you kind of wonder what it's for sometimes. So what I'm going to do actually is just drop out of presentation mode here so that I can show you this. For instance, with the Windows key, especially if you've got a large monitor, and I have, just so you know, I have a 34-inch ultra wide, I have a 24-inch next to it, and then I have the monitor that comes with my laptop. And let me tell you, especially when I'm doing a webinar, I'm using all of them. So it's not too many for me, for sure. But here, if you see, I'm using the Windows key on the left or the right arrow to snap things where I want. Okay, and then I could bring that up, and I can split the screen like that. All right, so that's really a pretty cool thing to do, especially if you've got a large monitor. Another thing that you may not be familiar with is the copy and paste clipboard. Everybody knows Control-C and Control-V, at least I hope you do. But if you hit the Windows key and then V, as you'll see, what pops up is the copy and paste clipboard. And the last 25 things that I copied are available for me to paste. So I don't know about you, but for instance, when I was actually putting together the Word document with the links that I'll share with you later, I had to go over to one document, I had to copy a couple of things, and then I went over to my destination document and then pasted those couple of things, right? I didn't have to bounce back and forth. And it's really just incredibly convenient. I find myself using it probably at least once an hour when I'm working on my computer, and maybe more. So it's real easy. If you've never done it before, hit the Windows key and V at the same time. You'll probably get a message that says, hey, you haven't set up the copy and paste clipboard yet. Would you like to? Yes, okay, check, whatever it takes to get that dialog box to go away and start using it. Why it's not active all the time, I really don't know, because I just love it. The other thing that I really like too is the snip and sketch. And here's where it's just really easy to be able to do something. So it's Windows key, Shift, and S. So here I just clicked on that, and then all I have to do is grab a window of some sort, and now I can copy and paste this to my heart's content. So, you know, for instance, if I wanted to, I could have gone in and modified the clipboard piece. But, you know, if you've got a question or an error in copy or some questionable entry in a database, instead of trying to describe where it is, you can actually just snip and sketch and save time. So I think that's really pretty wonderful tool. And I would encourage everyone to explore these. So just bear with us while this loads up again, and you'll get to hear Rosa talk a little computerese too.
All right. Anybody who's gone to a restaurant during COVID is familiar with QR codes, right? And you can absolutely use them, obviously outside of restaurants, but in a work environment, it's huge. I was talking before about machinists in a machine shop going from one machine to another, and we talked about, you know, 1-point lessons. Perfect way to do it, especially if everybody has a cell phone at work. In some cases, work provides them. But imagine walking up to a machine and being able to scan the QR code, and your whole set of setup instructions are there. Changing a program on a machine, work order, job jackets, notices and announcements. Case in point, in our situation, most of the shop employees, certainly like hourly operators and stuff, don't have a computer workstation, okay? So anytime that I need to get notification out to them, I am forced to, you know, print a gazillion copies and post them all over the place, or forward it to the supervisors, ask them to do that, so that, you know, all the folks in the shop can be aware of it. With the QR code, everybody does have a cell phone, even if it's personal. Oh yeah, the Christmas party or the holiday party is coming up. Okay, scan the code and here's all your information. You know, again, is it a work-related thing? Technically, yes, but it's a lean thing. You know, why would you want to take the time and the effort to post a bunch of stuff that people may not see Whereas, you can post one big thing in a communications board or something. They can pull up a QR code and take it from there. Again, just easy. Some people, I was reviewing this webinar with someone and they said, oh, you should do some YouTube hacks. I was like, okay, call it what you want to call it. But at the end of the day, it's about making life easier. This is probably Manny's favorite slide.
No, just this week. Okay, the top spot rotates. But I got to tell you, folks, this is something that has bugged me for a while. And if you've ever had me in class, you've probably heard me talk about this. So it's something we call the pull through. It's a spot in a parking lot. Have you ever seen someone try to hit perhaps this first spot so that they're pulling in like they're used to? I've watched people back up 3 times just to hit within the lines, even though there's nobody else around them. And all too often, if they would just pull through to the far side, then it would be much easier because, for one, it's faster. For another, it's safer when you're pulling out, right? I mean, people are idiots at parking lots. They're worried about like getting home and making dinner. They're not thinking about who might be pulling out in front of them. So this way, you don't have to back out into a parking lot. Truck drivers, especially people who drive pickup trucks or large SUVs, they're either used to backing into a spot or using the pull through to make it simple. I mean, it really is much safer that way, to the point where when I was doing work with an electric utility at their high voltage, their pole farm, where they train linemen, that was the requirement in the parking lot. First move is forward. And they didn't really care how you got there. Just, if the brown sticky stuff hits the rotating blades, they wanted to be able to get people out of that facility pretty quickly. So that's what we're doing here. So for anyone to ask the question, is this okay? The question really should be, why isn't everyone doing this? I think you'd find it to be much better. So please, I'm hoping you'll consider doing this yourself. So another thing too that we want to recognize, and we touched on this very briefly earlier, is really this idea of the importance of people. Okay, the best solution in the world nobody buys into yields lousy results. So how do we engage other people? And there's actually there's a way. We have an answer. So in fact, this is something I've developed. I call them my Kata for the real world questions. And they are loosely patterned on Kata, except they use normal language and they don't require training to be able to have a conversation with anybody about CI. So it starts off like this: hey, wouldn't it be great if we could? And here's where we generate our target condition. Wouldn't it be great if we could process orders in 4 hours? Wouldn't it be great if we could set up in half the time that it takes today? Right? This is what sets up the goal that we're looking for. So then we have to ask the question, well, what's stopping us from doing it today? And here is where you need to take a moment, get some of the emotion out, and really write down some of these reasons or obstacles as to why we can't achieve this thing right now today. Okay, so through this step, we generate that obstacle list. Once we have that obstacle list, now it's time to try different things. Like, let's take one obstacle at a time and let's try to fix it. Okay, we're not worried about solving everything. We're just worried about this one. Let's say that we're worried about, I don't know, trying to get replenishment material to an operator. Okay, that could be one of the contributors to lower than desired productivity in an area. So let's focus on that one. How do we get replenishment material to people easily? The idea here is that we're trying to challenge some of the assumptions. Well, this is the way we do things. This is the way I would learn. We could go on about the things that I've seen people do today because someone 10 or 20 years ago told them how to do it that way. Amazing, right? So now question number 4 is really a reflection question. What we're asking ourselves is, how did that change work out? And there's a couple of possibilities here, right? It could be that we solved the problem and can move on to the next obstacle. Or it could be that we didn't solve the problem at all and we need to go back and try again. Or, and as probably most likely we solved some of the problem, but maybe introduced a few new wrinkles. And so we may have to go back in and try and attack that obstacle yet again. All right, but this is our chance to really reflect, how did we do? What was good, what was not so good? And then the question becomes, well, what do we work on next? Are we going to go back in and address that obstacle? Or are we going to move on to the next one? And the thing is, I mean, you can't work each obstacle to perfection. You kind of have to get it to a point where it's not a major contributor anymore, then move on to the next highest contributor to your issue. And eventually you will end up coming back to it when you get so good that you're going back and really taking care of the small opportunities as well. So these are those Kata questions. Now, I do believe that Rosa is going to talk to us about an example. You want to take it away?
Absolutely. This is such a simple project, and it's one of my favorite projects ever. But it really exemplifies how these questions start the conversation and see the project through. So wouldn't it be great if we could, sitting at a continuous improvement meeting, a bunch of folks from the shop were out there, and we're looking for ideas. What are your pet peeves? What's going on? And somebody mumbled, oh, if you really want to fix something, do something about the pallets. Every guy from the shop, every guy, immediately, oh yeah, we got to do something about the pallets, okay? They used to have to break slats because we never ordered pallets. We always used, for years, used pallets that stuff came in on. Okay, so what's keeping us from doing that today? And basically, yeah, we don't buy pallets. We reuse what's there, so you're just going to have to deal with it. No. What if we tried this? We found a design that worked. How can we source them inexpensively? The picture that you see here are basically like block store pallets, and they are sort of like leased, I guess. Stuff gets dropped off, the pallets get taken back. Invariably, well, first of all, they're incredibly expensive. We tried to source them out. They were just some ridiculous hundreds of dollars. But we found a used pallet place not far from us that had stragglers of these. And they used to save them because the big box stores or the pallet manufacturers would come and buy them periodically, buy them back. I said, well, we'd like to buy some. And of course, he said, well, I'm going to have to charge you more. I'm going to have to charge you like $5.75 a pallet. So yeah, that was what we tried, and incredibly it worked. So I jumped the gun on that one. Absolute satisfaction. Time and money was saved. People were part of that solution, because were it not for people grumbling about pallets, who would have known, right? What should we work on next? Now, at that point, we worked on changing out empty gas bottles, which were a slow problem. But if you look at this next addition quickly, the reduction in transportation time completely exceeded the expectations of the goal set. The shop can now move an item in 5 minutes or less, and I'm talking, a distance of 10 or 20 feet with a pallet jack, because it's easy, because they don't have to struggle with it to make it fit. Potential savings of close to 2,600 hours, and the total cost for 100 new pallets is $575. This is one of those projects that's just like, it's a star. Not real important, but it absolutely proves the point of how thinking, using your head, don't settle, okay? Don't accept the status quo because that's the way we've always done it. Of course not.
Yeah, if I could just talk about the gas bottle project for a moment. Just imagine, folks, a 25-acre facility with at least 6 different buildings where people work. Now, for everyone's convenience, can you imagine that we might have a centralized gas storage area located in the courtyard? And let me tell you that people really appreciated that, especially at night, or when it was raining or even snowing in the winter and they had to go change gas bottles. So just imagine that. Believe me, that's a pretty good tale that you'll probably be hearing on the occasional series. So getting back to those Kata questions real quick, just really the the big one, right? The one that really just really sets off the tone of the entire conversation. Wouldn't it be great if we could what? And you can see there's a list of some of the possibilities. I'm sure you have many of your own. I mean, hey, wouldn't it be great to go through the day without getting bombarded with questions, especially stupid ones about things that people should know, like, hey, well, where's this and where's that? And, you can just imagine all sorts of things, and depending on how well you can imagine these things, that really is going to help dictate the success of your efforts. And so the idea is that by using these Kata questions, you can have a conversation with anyone using natural language and really start to drive continuous improvement thinking. I actually have those questions as a wallet card for people to use and remember, and also as a poster so that everyone can start to use the same logic in those questions in the conversation that they have with other people. So I really think it is a perfect way to start a conversation. So a lot of times at the end of a presentation, people say, well, okay, Manny, what's next? What are we going to do? How do we move forward? What's the next step? So a couple of keys here. One is really you should get started today. Much like saving for the future or saving for retirement, the best time to do it was the day after you entered the workforce. The next best time to start saving is today. Same thing with continuous improvement. So at least get the gumption up to make something better. And then once you have that, finding ways forward is not all that hard. In fact, one really easy one that I love, it's a great free resource. It's this 2-second lean. And for anybody who might know, we had Paul Akers on in June of this year for a conversation. His webinar was entitled Lean is Simple. We're going to have him again on next June in 2022 for Lean is Simple Part 2. But with this book, just very quickly, Paul was a cabinet maker, came up with an idea for a product, started a company, thought he was doing really well. He was successful, making money, getting lots of newspaper articles and magazine articles and such. Really thought he knew his stuff. He came in contact with Lean, realized he didn't know much about manufacturing, and dedicated himself towards learning all the stuff. Part of the reason why he was even searching for this in the first place was he realized that improvements weren't occurring in his company unless he was driving them. So he turned around and asked each employee to give him one improvement every day with a target of saving 2 seconds. Okay, that's all he asked for, 1 2-second improvement every day. And of course, many times the savings are significantly more than that. If you go and look at Paul Akers or his company FastCap on YouTube, one of the videos that I love recently or over the past year it's called FastCap's Best Improvements 2020. And in it, Paul Akers goes around with an iPhone and he's saying, hey, Joe, what's your favorite improvement for 2020? And Joe proudly shows the changes that were made at his workstation that he did and talks about some of the other things. Really cool. It's a 35-minute video, and believe me, folks, I'm at least as ADD as you are. I rarely watch 35-minute videos. I watched every second of that one. So just saying. Lots of stuff is there. This Lean is Simple video that I mentioned, here's the link for that. And of course, there's books and an app available at paulakers.net. No registration required. Just go there, click the download, and it's great. For the books, they're available in so many different languages and so many different formats you wouldn't believe it. How about Turkish? How about Polish? Hindi, Mandarin? I mean, honestly, you name it, they're in all sorts of languages, Arabic. So take a look at some of those things. Take a look at some of the things we've got for ASQ for LED. So I think, Rosa, you're going to talk a little bit about people and success.
Absolutely. I love celebrations. And truly, it's not an exaggeration. Celebrate your success. Sometimes, like with that palette project, you may not pick the most important project, but you certainly want one that people are going to see, that people are going to notice. Okay, go back to building a culture. Well, shoot, we've been complaining about replacing the floor for years, but you know what they did instead They just reworked the weld carts with better wheels and better maneuverability. So, okay, they didn't replace the floors yet, but they're working on it, and it's very visible, and it's useful to a lot of people. So absolutely celebrate them, make them visual, tell everybody what you're working on. Tell everybody how you knocked off, 5 minutes of your day by doing X, Y, and Z. Making lean topics a standing agenda item. Like Manny said when he was referring to Paul Akers, it's become a part of their language. Okay, what improvements have you done today? And it's a matter of course. It's not a what? What are you talking about? No. This is what we do. Probably both Manny and I's favorite on this slide, because we discuss it frequently. Catch people doing something right. Everybody seems to be so quick to point the finger, yourselves included, when you go to a restaurant you don't like, or when, Amazon loses your package, you're real quick to catch them doing something wrong. Oh, you didn't get my food right, blah, blah, blah. Well, how about catching people doing something right? How often when you go to a fabulous place, a restaurant, a store, when somebody does a phenomenal job with a task that you assign them, how often are you celebrating their successes instead of just assuming that that's the way it ought to be and move on to the next one? Absolutely. This is all part of engagement. This is all part of getting people on board, whether it's your kids, whether it's your colleagues, whether it's your suppliers. Get people involved and expect it and publicize it, share the credit. And of course, when something works, when you actually do something that works well, think about other places where you can apply it. We've done that with many different process changes where I am that have spanned, from manufacturing processes to office processes to accounting processes. We've even shared some of that information with our suppliers. What do you need to get us the stuff on time? What do you need to prevent your people from having to do redundant work? It's huge. Just get everybody involved and celebrate it. Everybody loves a party. And with that.
There are a couple things here. So if you're looking for more information, as many people are, here are some things, many of which we did not talk about, but I tried to put a little bit of description in. So I have to tell you that the first link, GCF Online free, no registration necessary, so it appeals to the libertarian side of my brain. And I got to tell you, there's just a ton of great information there, videos, download links. You want to learn MS Office or Google Sheets? No problem, you can do that. There's also lots of other stuff, 3D printing and computers and languages, and it's phenomenal. You should take a look at that. Some of the others are there some videos here that are worth looking at. Sometimes I love opening up a meeting with a short video, kind of sets the tone. Hopefully if people can laugh, that's even better, and then we can talk about the video and how that applies to us. So you should take a look at the Exact Instructions Challenge. It's fabulous. Here's an article I wrote for LinkedIn, How I Assess Your Operation. Yeah, a little shameless self-promotion here, I suppose, but I got to tell you, it's a very popular article and got a lot of comments on it. And think about it. How much air are you storing in your racks? And it'll be asking questions like that of yourself. Some other things are a little more shameless self-promotion. Sign up for my newsletter. But there's lots of other stuff here too. So this is going to be part of the presentation. Some people have asked, are you going to get slides? What I would suggest is that the surest way to know that you're getting slides is to reach out to Rosa or me. Ask for the slides. Give us your email address so we know where to send them. And tell us how you're doing. In fact, I'm pretty sure that we're done now with the presentation. We have some time for questions. If you would like, please feel free to drop your questions in the questions box. Doesn't have to be questions. It could be maybe some of your personal lean efforts out in the world. We'd love to hear about ways to do that.
I would love that.
Could be some of the hits or the misses that you've seen and perhaps the reasons why. So it doesn't all have to be a good news story. Sometimes you learn more from what didn't work and what you should do next time. So I would encourage you to do that. So here is our contact information, folks. We stand by ready for questions. Do you have any other lean in life or lean in the world type stuff?
Oh,
I mean, we
gosh.
showed some pictures you didn't even mention, you know, about organization in the home, but what else is there?
Where do we start? I keep going back, Manny, to the culture piece. And, you know, as much as I say, catch people doing things right, when I have found that when you see a mistake in process, okay, or non-compliance, whatever you want to call it in process, the best way to approach it, in my opinion, the way I do it, is quite simply approach, how are you, what's going on? Can I ask you a question? Yeah, why are you doing this way? And it's not a threatening question. It's not you're doing it wrong. It's why are you doing it this way? And in fact, I would say 100% of the time, I don't think I've ever gotten, you know, didn't work that way. People do stop and think, and they kind of look a little sheepish and they say, well, you know, I'm not sure, or I was trying to, you know, get it done a little bit faster, or, oh, gee, I wasn't thinking. Do you know what I mean? It brings things back to that mindfulness. So if there is such a thing as catching people doing something right, how about when they're not doing something right, how about you approach them in the terms of, what are you doing? What are you thinking? Tell me why. You know, tell me why this is working for you. And I'll tell you, it puts things in perspective. I find that a lot with folks that have been doing the same job, and we've got people in our company that have been there for more than 50 years, literally working for 50 plus years. Why they're not in Florida is beyond me, but that's okay. And again, the better you get at your job, and we know this from driving, folks, the more shortcuts you tend to take. Like, I don't know about you, but sometimes I'm, you know, halfway to work and I look around going, oh, how'd I get here? Because your mind is someplace else. You're doing it by rote. So it's a great approach. It's not a lean hack necessarily, but it's a wonderful engagement tool.
I guess we could start the long goodbye then.
Good.
All right, Rosa, you want to go first?
Well, I thank you all for joining us. I appreciate your doing so. And I hope that if you walked away with one thing from this webinar, it's the one thing that's going to kind of catapult you into a true lean thinking philosophy.
So, folks, I see it is top of the hour. That would be 2 o'clock for me, probably some other time for you. I would like to say thank you once again. I know you've got lots of opportunities to see content throughout your day and your week. We appreciate you spending time with us. Until December 8th with Kata Lehman, where she's going to talk about Lean Daily Management. Folks, my name's Manny, and on behalf of ASQ's Lean Enterprise Division, thanks and enjoy the rest of your day. Bye now.
Bye.